Welcome to Gary's Casual Chats. Join me as I sit down with friends who are shaping their industries with their really cool startups. We'll be talking about their entrepreneurial journeys, innovative ideas, and the stories behind the startup making waves. It's all about inspirations, insights, and most importantly, where innovation meets friendship. Today, we have a really special guest, my good friend Arthur Chiu. Arthur has been my best friend since we first met in middle school over a decade ago. He has always been ambitious, passion driven, kind, smart, and most importantly, caring. Since high school, our paths have diverged, but our friendship only grew stronger. Right now, Arthur is running a health and wellness company, LivBalance, in a country where we don't hear a lot about in the startup scene, the Philippines. Please join me in welcoming my friend, Arthur. Well, to welcome such a special guest on the show, today we have a very special addition to our podcast. The world's hottest chip, maybe. Well, chip challenge as it's known. So before I ask a question, we'll both be taking a piece of the chip together, and let's see how that goes. And yeah, it might be a chaotic episode, but we're here for it. So shall we begin with
Yeah, should we get started?
piece?
Yeah. All right.
Really small.
Oh, okay. Here. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. Let's see how this
Oh
goes.
gosh, it smells horrible. Oh my god.
It's like not one of those things you feel afterwards. As soon as you put it on your tongue, you feel it.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I just dipped my tongue in raw jalapeno juice.
And it just gets worse. Oh, it gets worse.
Oh, now my throat. Oh, thank goodness I brought milk. Oh, I'm already sweating so much. Okay.
Thank goodness it's 2 liters.
All right.
Oh, it's bad. Oh yeah.
Arthur.
Yeah.
Could you start by telling us a little bit about your journey before LivBalance?
Yeah. So as Gary mentioned, we met in high school back in Toronto, Canada. And then after that, I went to Northwestern for 4 years. They got a degree in material science. So I graduated just before COVID, so December 2019, which is before all the chaotic things. And then after that, the reason I guess everyone's wondering is like why I end up in the Philippines, and that's because I have family doing business there, also in the health and wellness industry. So I thought to myself, I could just get a job in the U.S., probably around Chicago area, doing like material science related things, or I could give it a try and try to join my family doing business in the Philippines, and that's what I did. Yeah, so I went over there, worked for 3 months, and then all hell broke loose. So I was stuck in Taiwan working remotely for a year and a half after that.
Right.
Yeah, so it's not great because I was in a sales job, so it wasn't great to work remotely, but it also wasn't good for like people like us our age where you're just starting your career and suddenly the world shuts down.
Yeah.
That gives you really a big toll on emotionally, but also like you have so much expectation for yourself for what you think you can do, and then nope, you just have to put that on hold, and that was really tough.
Right. Especially for a more consumer focused company, right? Like you can't really work remotely because you have to work with a lot of sales and marketing people, first of all. But also you need to meet your customers face to face and hear what they think and get that feedback. But obviously you weren't able to do that.
Yeah, that's a really tough part because like you said, unlike other industries where for us, a lot of the relationships between you and your customers, you and your suppliers are very important. And it's hard to do that over a cell phone or over Zoom. So that was very difficult, and that really put everyone in a difficult position. But luckily, our suppliers, our customers are also aware of that, and they're very comforting, but also very willing to cooperate. So we got lucky on that part. Yeah.
That's amazing. So before we even continue, maybe we should just end the podcast here because these chips are really hot. And I don't even know if I
we had
ask any more questions.
We had like what 10% of the chip. It comes in one of those like Dorito shape, and oh my, there's another one. We got 2.
Oh my goodness.
It's like what, $7 each?
Okay. Okay, everyone. We have to take a little intermission just now because that that first little piece of chip already completely destroyed both of us. We're still recovering. We decided to we must abandon the mission. Otherwise, I will have to send my friend to the ER to get stomach washing, and
And I don't have healthcare here. That's a problem.
Really tough. So yeah, we'll continue the show. No more hot chip. The first piece, it has its lingering effect, so we'll still be suffering. But let's get back to the topic at hand, right? So to start, why don't you talk a little bit about the product that LivBalance creates?
Yeah, so the brand, which we newly established in March 2023, is focused on women's health. And we do that by creating very easy, simple, convenient to use products, right? So our top selling products are collagen jelly and an enzymes jelly. So collagen, as the name suggests, is for beauty and skincare. And then the enzyme jelly is really our top selling products. And that is for gut health, reduce bloating, constipation, but also it boosts immunity. And both of these products are in very cute, small jelly packets, right? So it's very convenient to use because they are individually packed. So what our design is that we want to have this to be with you, all day and every day, right? So you can put that in office, you can put that in your house, or you can, while traveling, it becomes very easy to bring it with you and to continue that self-care journey.
So very portable.
Yes, that's the whole point, and very safe because they're individually packed, right? So you don't worry about contamination, you don't worry about oxidization, a lot of the things that really is a problem for other kind of dosage forms.
Right. And it's a portion size, so every time you want one, you just rip open the pack and consume it.
Yeah. The idea is that it's supposed to be a very healthy snack, right? And that's I think the new trend in terms of healthcare, is in terms of supplements at least, to make sure that though they are not taken as medicine, right? They're more incorporated into your lifestyle, right? So this will work. For example, you work out, right? A lot of the products you see now are for like pre or post workout are very simple, easy to use products that are probably delicious, right? Because after a workout, you might want a little bit of more flavor to your supplements, right? And you can't do that with a tablet or a capsule.
For sure.
Right? So that's the idea.
So what inspired you to pursue this specific products, though, right? The health and wellness market is very huge. There's a broad spectrum of products that are on the market. How did you ended up choosing to focus on these two specific products?
Yeah, for sure. A little bit background. So in the Philippines, collagen is the top selling ingredients, right? People really take their beauty and skincare seriously.
Okay.
Yeah, and then because in terms of enzymes, because of their eating habits, their choices in terms of diet, vegetables is not a very common thing on the dining table in the Philippines, and neither is fruits. So they tend to have pretty bad digestion problems, constipation, bloating, right? Especially when the diet is so focused on protein and carbs, right? They eat a lot of rice there. So I really think that's a problem because, as we know, sometimes we say the gut is the second brain, right? It's very important in terms of building immunity to have a really strong gut to do that. So we really think that's a really necessary product for the market. And a lot of times, in terms of us, people who are in the health and wellness industry, people just are not educated enough about like the choices they are making, and we try to assist them and we try to educate them along the way to make sure that our goal is to make sure that we're like a partner, with you, and then throughout this journey of you becoming, keep your health and then grow your potential to do whatever you wanted to do.
Gotcha.
Right. And in terms of the jelly form, it's so special, right? So that really caught my eye first thing. And then also our target market really loves sweets.
Okay.
Sweets is also a big thing in the Philippines, so we try to combine that. It's like, okay, you know what if we can make sweets that are healthy, right, and less toll on your body, right? So the sugar we use are natural sugar. They're not they're not like any other additives we would do, right? So we try to do that and try to serve the market what it wants, but also to give them a better outcome, I guess.
Yeah. So it sounds like you had put a lot of thought into the living habit of the locals and really looked at what kind of supplements they would really need, so that you can create a product that address their health need. It's something that they would like and would crave, so that they can slowly build that healthier living habits.
Yes, and that's a good point because as a foreigner, I'm a foreigner to the Philippines. Sometimes I do think it's better to have that perspectives, right? So you've seen how the different lifestyles, whether that's in Taiwan or that's in Canada or the US, and then you can have a more. I would think if you're willing to do it and then put yourself to zero and then relearn everything, then you have a better perspectives in terms of designing the products because you can really be in a sense very neutral about it. And I think to leverage that and to understand the market is very important. Very important.
Yeah. Getting rid of any prior biases.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, that's really amazing. So I am very curious about the business that you're running, right? Being in the Silicon Valleys, I'm much more used to talking with people about the software industries, startups that are working on softwares or some sort of high tech things. So tell me a little bit about, just this end-to-end flow, right, with the consumer good business. Where do you manufacture things? How do you bring that to the packaging place, to then distribution, put it on the shelves, and finally deliver it to the end consumer?
Yeah, that's a great question. In terms of what we do is that we basically do end to end, right? The only thing we don't do is the raw material sourcing, right? We do have amazing partners that do that, and then we source from all over the world, New Zealand, US, Canada, Switzerland, France, you name it, right? And then we have our own factories in Taiwan that will manufacture these, right? And then package them into already like what you would see on the shelf. And then what we do in the Philippines is that we do the importation of it, which sounds easy, but there are a lot of things that can go in there, right? And then the shipping, the importation, and then obviously we do the end retail, which is we try to sell that either through e-commerce, which is a big part of our revenue, or physical brick and mortar retail stores. So that could be department stores, that could be cosmetic stores. You see kind of like Sephora, right? Watsons is the big one, right? I think most audiences in Asia would know that.
Yeah.
The other big one is Mercury. That's locally. That's a local drugstore chain. They're actually very large. Yeah, they're much larger than Watsons in the Philippines. But they're also like wholesalers. So just imagine like the Costco.
Yeah.
Right, over there. So there are many sales channels that we can go through. But the end-to-end process, that's essentially what it is. To break it down, raw material sourcing, production, packaging, importation, and then finally the retail. That's the kind of the whole, I would say, the 5 categories.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And the thing is, each of them have very unique expertise that you need, right? So a lot of times you can't do everything yourself. You have to rely on partners, and that's very important to really just focus on what you're good at. So for me, right, LivBalance really is the end, which is like the beginning and the end, right? So the product design, and then we do the selling, and that's it. Right? We rely on others to do the rest.
Gotcha. Something that I think you might have a really interesting perspective on is because you started a business, right as COVID was developing and all the chaos was happening. During that time, there was a huge impact on the supply chain of a lot of traditional business. And obviously, as you're building out a new business during that time, you probably saw the problem happening in real time to others. And so what measures did you take to kind of prevent those things to happen to you, right? Because it does sound like you rely on a lot of partners. So how is your supply chain sort of become bulletproof as much as possible against any future potential disruptions?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. That's actually a very good question. And I think this is the same for all manufacturing companies. For us specifically, I think there are 2 things I can point out. One is the inventory, right? For us, we're the ones who sell physical products, right? It's not like we don't distribute software, right? So the inventory is very important, and you cannot have out of stock. That's just not an option because, like I said, you have all these big stores that you go into. They will be very angry at you if you run out of stock. And then e-commerce, obviously, and then obviously you lose revenue, all that kind of stuff. So in terms of inventory, there are 2 things I would say. One is that, pretty obvious, the forecast, you need to forecast much longer, right? Like you said, like raw material sourcing, like you're getting all these raw materials from all over the world. Shipping was crazy. There was so much stress just trying to get your products or your raw materials on board a ship.
Were you impacted by that ship stuck in the Suez Canal?
I don't know if specifically that ship, but we were impacted all around. Yeah. So your forecast needs to be, you need to put that into your forecast, right? So back in the day, we can probably do like, let's say, 3 months of safety inventory. No, you might need to do 6. You might need to do 8, right? So that puts a toll on your cash, right? That puts a toll on your the resources that you have, right? So that's one, forecast. In terms of inventory, another one I would say is kind of what's happening right now around the world, especially for, I guess, a lot of high-tech things, is get that second supplier, right? These suppliers are great, they're amazing, and then they do a very good job, but as a business person, you just can't afford to have only one option.
Right.
And that, it wasn't the case before, I really do think. Like before COVID, a lot of people just like, oh, we're working great with these partners. And they kind of, we got so comfortable expecting that that's going to continue. But it didn't, right? So when COVID came, you got hit in the face essentially and said, you know what? It's time to have option B, option C, and maybe keep going forward. That's very, very important. And not just partners in the same location, but maybe in different regions also.
Right.
A lot of things that you were sourced from, like for example, for us, like Taiwan or Japan, you might want to source locally now. And those are all very important. And you will be surprised, like the amount of work that needs to go through and the amount of strategy that needs to be implemented to do that. So that's for the inventory, right? So forecast and like the choices of your suppliers. The second thing is operations. So I think that's good because, I mean, during COVID, nobody gets to go to the office. You need to figure out a way to streamline your process and to make it work that a lot of your employees could be online but still gets the job done. And for that, I really do think technical tools become very, very important. I think in the US or in like a lot of first world countries, we take it for granted that we have a lot of these tools for like accounting, for like operations, for CRM, for project management, and all that kind of stuff. But in Southeast Asia, that's actually not the case. Sometimes a lot of times business leaders rely on very old school management tools.
Pen and pencil.
That's
paper,
right. Yeah, you'd be surprised, right?
Excel.
Exactly. Pen and pencil. Like a lot of companies do track their inventory in pen and pencil.
Wow.
It's wild. Yeah, when I went, I was like, this can't be real, but it is. So at that point, if you can leverage, external tools, probably developed here or developed in other parts of the world, and then educate that to your staffs, to your partners, and then how do we make sure that we're using the same platform, and how do we make sure that our processes are smooth? That's actually very important. And you don't realize that when everything is working. That's my point. You don't realize the problems when everything is going smooth.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
You get hit in the face and you're like, oh, you know what? I better run faster than my competitor. That's the only thing.
I mean, no one worries about plan B until plan A fails. And for so long, plan A was just going so well, the right at time delivery, not just for consumers, the end consumers, but also for all the intermediate companies, right? For parts to get there just in time to make just the right amount to get out the door and save inventory costs. Because there is a downside to having all this fail safes, right? From what you're talking about, there's extra cost to store all these inventories, right? There's cost to the cash that, as you mentioned, they have to put up front to secure more of these raw resources. There's more operational costs to training people and just operational costs to hiring more people as well. So it's definitely a tough balance to create, but I think COVID really showed us how important it is to keep that balance in mind and not tip to either side, because it could be one mishap that's waiting to happen to ruin the entire business.
And I want to add a little bit because I think we're on a very important topic, and I don't know if anybody talked about that before. The mentality of leaders, it doesn't have to be the entrepreneur yourself. It could be your management team and things like that. Is when the times is good, everyone's gonna think good. But it really is your job to think the worst. Right. So honestly, even after this, and then now we're recovering from COVID, a lot of businesses are gonna go back to what they were doing, before COVID, thinking like, oh, you know what, the good times will continue. But as the leader, your most important job is to think of the worst. Right. And really have that humbling personality and I guess humbling sense. Right. To make sure that, you know what, we could make 5% more profit, but we will be safer if we make less.
Right.
And that's the tough part, because who doesn't want to make more profit?
Exactly.
Right? But that's the tough call you need to make. Right? It's easy for your team to tell you that we can do this, and then guess what? We can make 5% more profit. But they won't tell you, or maybe they didn't see that what would happen if tomorrow there's a ship stuck in the canal. Right? That's your job. You have to figure that out, and you have to make the tough decision on, do I want to do that, or do I want to be bulletproof?
Absolutely. think a lot of times people underestimate how much courage and resolve it takes to make that call, right? Because like you said, everyone wants more profit. You want more profit as the business owner. Your employee wants more profit. Your shareholder, other stakeholder, everyone wants more profit, right? So to really be able to stand up against that and say, hey, let's sacrifice a part of our profit to make sure that we're safer as a business, that we can survive, especially when that benefit might not materialize until when the next unfortunate thing happened. It's really tough. And the other thing that I really think you hit the nail in the head, yeah, is that you don't know what the next thing that might happen is, right? The worst thing that has yet to happen is the worst thing that has yet to happen, right? Like we have no historical data that can reliably tell us how bad the next thing is, right? We all thought the Spanish flu was really, really bad, right? But then COVID came, right? We all thought the, you know, Chernobyl was bad, and then there's Hiroshima in Japan, right? So even though it could be hard to imagine, something worse could always happen. And that's the toughest part of this is you can't know about the unknown. So the danger of the unknown is tough to defend against.
Yeah, and I wanna. That's great because I just read about the author of Psychology of Money wrote another book, and it basically is talking about how in order to deal with things like this, right, pandemics, wars, and all that kind of stuff, um, it's hard to predict what will happen, right? So the better thing, what he suggests is that the better thing is to go, study history and then figure out the underlying things that always happens, under the surface, right? So for example, if there's a pandemic, what happens? People get scared. People get scared. They store things.
Yeah.
Right? Those are the things that you need to understand of this market and of this world.
Yeah.
And hopefully those things will help you make better decisions. And I think that sums up what exactly a leader is, right? Is how you have all these crazy distractions outside, you have all these crazy things, but you as a leader need to know like what is the unchanging truth.
Yeah.
Right, if you will call that. Throughout all these decades, hundreds, maybe thousands of years.
Yeah.
And hopefully you can understand those and then build your business around those truths.
Yeah.
Same with
Absolutely.
product
First
design.
principles.
Exactly. That's exactly.
Yeah.
That's very important.
Cool. Thank you so much for those insights on supply chain. But now let's change the topic a little bit. Let's talk about your customers, right? Who is your target market in the Philippines? Who are the people that are buying your products?
Sure, definitely. Our target market is actually quite simple. We focus on working women and mostly mothers, right? So these are the people who are at a stage in their life that they are so busy with everything, right? With work, they have parents to take care of, they have in-laws to take care of, and they have children, right? They're probably in a stage in their life, in their career, where they're probably feeling a little bit of stuck, or if they are if they're feeling a lot of immense pressure, right? So that's why we try to provide. We know these are the people at the age where they need a lot of good self-care solutions, whether that's for their externally or for them internally, right? And we try to provide a very easy solution for them because we know they're busy and we know they don't have a lot of mental capacity, outside of what they're doing. And then we just want to make sure that we provide this and give them an easy way to boost their confidence and then take care of their health. And then hopefully that will translate into that giving them the chance to combat whatever's coming at them in life.
I really like how you framed your relationship with your customer, right? Because you're treating them as your partner, as your friend, right? So when you create your product, it sounds like instead of having, the chia jelly to be another thing that they have to check off on their to-do list, right? Another task to do, something that they have to like be reminded to eat. You're almost providing this comfort to them that it's something that they want to do to take some stress off, to take a breather, and making it a really enjoyable experience for them rather than adding to their mental stress by putting just this as being another medication that they have to remember to take. And if they miss, they feel guilty, they feel bad. But no, you're trying to make sure that you're really there as a friend to support them.
Yeah, I think we approach this and we make sure that everyone understands this in the team is that we don't create products that we don't take, right? We don't create products that we don't think is good, right? And this comes from understanding our customers again. You really need to you almost need to feel like you're in the same household with them.
Yeah.
Like, what do they do in the morning? What do they do at lunch? What do they do in the afternoon? What do they do during dinner time? What do they do after dinner? You understand them so well that you know the needs. I know it sounds very cliche.
Yeah.
But that's it, right? The product design phase is solely based on the market you're trying to serve, right? And then like I think you put a great point is that we don't try to force it. Be like, oh, if you don't take this, you die. No.
Yeah.
Like we do feel that you will be better off
Yeah.
with us, with our help, with our assistance.
Yeah.
And I think that's the mentality that we try to proceed.
For sure. Now, I think something that I've been waiting to ask you about is all this unique position that you're in as an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
You're a very special guest on this podcast, not only because of our personal relationship, but also because you're working, number one, in a country that I personally don't know a lot about, especially for running a business.
Yeah.
And number two, you're in an industry that I don't know too much about, right? So I think you have a lot of perspectives on unique challenges that not all the companies will face, especially when they're in the software industry, right? So I think in that sense, you really stand out compared to other guests and other friends I've had on this podcast. So I'm going to ask you some things that are very specific to where you are and where your business is
For sure.
in the Philippines. And the first thing I want to ask about is just what is it like to running a business in the Philippines, right? The government structure is different. I believe the talent pool is probably different.
Yes.
Consumers, everything is different. So, tell us about what is it like to run a business there. How do you hire people, etc.
Amazing. I think I will sum it up pretty easily in one sentence. Like in first world countries like US, Canada, where everything goes by SOPs. There's a very clear cut of what to do. What I explained to my friend yesterday was that there's a large amount of black and white, and there's still a gray area, but very small. But in the Philippines, and I think this goes the same with other Southeast Asian countries, more developing nations, right? And this is nothing good or bad. This is just the stage that they're at. Is that there's a huge amount of gray area,
Right?
very little black and white,
Right?
And then how do you approach that? Is that you have to actually my mentor told me when I landed in the Philippines was that you just gotta. I mean, in Mandarin, we call 归零.
Yeah.
You gotta set yourself back to zero.
Yeah.
Don't assume anything. Nobody here cares if you graduated from Northwestern.
Yeah.
Nobody really cares. Okay, you gotta be here. You gotta take everything in, and you gotta sort out your logic. And I think that's the tough part, right? Because here we have a pretty standard. It's like, oh, if I want to create a company, this is probably like what the steps I would take.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a lot of data backing that up with theories and all that kind of stuff backing that up. In those kind of places, no, you just
No
have
formulas.
no formulas. And in fact, people succeed by doing all kinds of crazy things, right?
Yeah.
So you have your ability comes in, your strength comes in how quick you can adapt.
Right.
Really, like that's just it. So that's definitely one thing. So when you talk about government, dealing with government, how quickly can you adapt? Right?
Yeah.
That's the key to it. Supply chain we talked about. Hiring is one thing also very important to set yourself back to zero because people are different. They have different culture, and you can't assume you're better because you're a foreigner. That's not the right thing to do, right?
Yeah.
You have to understand them, and then obviously you pick the people that you think you will align in terms of values. That's a must. You don't give up on that because values are universal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
But you build systems around the people, the culture. That's very important, right? So it's not like you try to force culture onto them, and it's not like you absorb all of their culture and then you like blend in. No, there are definitely strengths and weaknesses to all cultures and people, and then we just try to integrate that, and then we try to find a very systematic way of doing things.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's the strength. That's I guess the advantage of being a foreigner because you do see things outside that you can probably incorporate.
Right.
Right, and then you just have to understand them. So set yourself back to zero. That's I think there's no. I don't know how to put it easier. That's the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really humbleizing, I guess. Is that a
That's
word? Humbleizing?
I think that's really interesting that you phrased it as building the system, adapting to the culture, right? Rather than having a preset of rules and framework and system in mind and hiring people and doing things that bends them into the system that fits your view of the world. You need to look at the world first and then assess what's the best system that you can bring into that world, right? Like what's the best system, best rule best values you can instill into your workplace in the Philippines with the employees that you have so that they can be the most efficient and thrive and grow, right? Like maybe the system here, like for example, at a lot of tech companies, there's really great, not just compensation in terms of financial compensation, but also just perks like free food,
Yes.
A lot of game machines, ping pong tables. I don't know, maybe that wouldn't work so well in the Philippines, right? And maybe people just like won't be used to working that kind of environment, and they wouldn't be reaching their full potential. And so I think that's really interesting. And that, extends beyond just for the people, right? It's also for the business, like how you structure your supply chain, how do you deal with regulations, et cetera, et cetera. Like I think that's also, maybe you can go deeper into that, dealing with regulation, because that feels like something that should be pretty black and white, right? Especially for the health and wellness industry. Like here, everything is basically like FDA approved or not approved.
Right.
Approved, you can sell. Not approved, you don't sell. But to get that approval sounds like it might not even be that black and white.
Yeah.
In the Philippines.
Yeah, I want to add one thing first, and yeah, you sum up pretty good. So like for example, I'll just give an example. Like in the Philippines, they are very family based. So most people have really large families, and when we say large, we mean like the people you see weekly are probably like 20 to 30 people in your family, right? And then there's like your extended, with like your third cousins or uncles from overseas. So they're really family oriented. So you need to make, at least we try to do, is that we try to make sure that we have that support system built into our company, so that make everyone feel like we are one family, right? Because when you do that, they naturally have a very tendency to support each other emotionally. I know in the like here we talk a lot about like like supporting each other, but we don't actually support each other emotionally unless we're like really close.
Yeah.
But that kind of emotional support is very different in the Philippines, right? So you want to do that, but again, you don't want that to become a very just one giant group, because then you fall into problems like groupthink. You fall into problems like you're unable to execute. You're unable to have both carrots and sticks, right? So it's important to have that culture, but also make sure you have enough clear guidelines to avoid that becoming a problem, right? So that, for example, that would be one big culture difference. Yeah, and then in terms of regulation, that's a good point. Yeah, everything we tend to think is like it's black and white. The thing is, it's a very the government system there is very people based, right? So one executioner might be very different from another, right? One person you submit to might be very different from another, and then when it comes to like corporate conflicts, I know you want to talk about that later. Government tends to just take a step back. They're like, oh, you know what? Just, you guys can blow it out, and then we don't want to do anything about it, which is kind of against like what they're built for. Like their whole purpose is to like settle disagreements, and they kind of just like, oh, it's fine. You guys can, for all I care, you can go, have a duel outside. Yeah. So those are definitely things you have to be very, very careful of. Yeah. You just, you do feel that you need to be on your own more. So you need to think, further in terms of your
gotta be on
planning.
your toes.
You gotta be on your toes. That's just, you gotta move fast.
Yeah.
Right. And then
That's so interesting.
it's very interesting.
And it's just like the chaos that surrounds running a business.
Yeah,
there.
you're right. And chaos is a good word, but it's not like a bad connotation. It's just the way things are. It's chaos, but then if you stay long enough and then you really try to immerse yourself into the environment, then there's a logic there. We just didn't know when we first arrived as foreigners, right?
Yeah.
So on the surface, it looks like a giant mess. You're like, how can businesses thrive? How do their GDP grow by 6% a year?
Yeah.
Right? Because they had all this logic, and these logic are built on, like, for example, their desire for family, right? For example, their desire for emotional support, right? All that kind of stuff.
So interesting. I mean, that's definitely a very eye-opening experience from what you told me compared to doing business here in the States side. I feel like that's like pretty unique to running a business maybe in the Southeast Asian countries where there's a lot of value placed on family. But yeah, no, that's really cool. Circling back to one thing though that you mentioned,
Yeah.
and we've talked about this story before, but you brought it up. Like, who is your biggest competition in the Philippines? And could you give the anecdote that you've told me about this the conflict that arises
Yeah,
between you and the competitors.
yeah. So I mean, we are basically a D2C supplements brand, right? So we have a lot of competition, and this is a pretty, it's a big field. So we don't really mind that there's a lot of competition. In terms of because our brand is more situated near the upper middle upper class. If we talk about the economy, right? We tend to do that. I don't know if we can do that here in the states, but we to tell a different story. We would separate, and this is a common industry, trend. We would separate customers into like levels, like A, B, C, D, E, F, depending on how much they can afford. So LivBalance as a brand is focused only on Class A and Class B customers.
Right.
Yeah. So our competitors will be mostly foreign brands, Japanese. Right. We have two really big Japanese brands there that I think they're doing an amazing job, and I honestly I kind of idolize them. Right. So they've been around for a while. We have one more Australian brand also doing a really good job. And then we have two American actually. NeoCell is one of our. Can I say it? Can I say it?
Yeah.
Anyway, NeoCell is one of our, I guess, our competitors, but they do a really good job also. But mostly our competitors will be foreign brands that are well established, well known around the world. Goli, right? They're this brand with a lot of gummies, and I love their products. Yeah, but anyway, mostly foreign companies. And the reason I brought up about like the government and everything is that LivBalance is actually our second brand. It wasn't the brand that we started with.
Yeah.
And it was not planned at all, if you will. So LivBalance was a brand that we essentially recreated in March 2023 because the original brand, which was called Nuvie, NUVIE, was launched just a couple months earlier in December of 2022. So that's when actually we started the company, right? So we started a company, Nuvie, the same products, but we have different brand under different brand name and all different packaging. And we start selling that for a couple of months, right? And then 2 months really. And in January, I suddenly received this very thick packet. I swear to God, it was like 85 pages thick. Okay, so it looked serious. I was like, okay, and I opened it. Basically, it's a letter with a lot of legal evidence and then like legal recommendation from their lawyers, from one of the largest actually pharmaceutical companies in the Philippines, and then obviously they have a subsidiary that does supplements. Right, and essentially threatening to sue us. In fact, it was already in action when at the time when I received the letter, and threatened me to change my brand name because my brand name Nuvie is they think coincides with one of their drugs for like neuro something.
So it's not even related.
Yeah, it's called Renuvie. So they had the RE in front of us. The logo looks completely different, and then they're not even in the same category because we're under the cosmetics and supplements category. And they're under the drugs category, and under FDA that's completely different categories, right? But there we go. What do you do at that time? Your product just launched. You're still burning red, and you have a lot of inventory in a storage. Right. Your team is just getting started, and this is 2 months into like starting the brand, right? So what do you do, right? So, and you would guess that there will be certain government agencies that will come out and be like, you know what, guys, okay, we can find a settlement and all that kind of stuff. Not really. No, they kind of just back off and be like, your lawyers can deal with it. I didn't have a lawyer. I couldn't afford a lawyer at that moment, right? So that was very tough. That was the time. That was the toughest moment in like the past 2 years since I was in the Philippines, right? Because
I can imagine the stress.
It felt like a David versus Goliath issue, except you had this amazing plan that was happening, and then suddenly you got hit in the face, right? If this happened, as the company grows and matures, you have more arsenal to deal with it. But there's just none. There was none. Yeah, and then the tough part is that you're gonna get emotional, right? And it because this thing means so much to you, right? But what do you do? Right? So that's the point where you need to realize, and your staff gets emotional too, right? You can't help them, right? They care about what they're doing, and they care about the brand, and they care about their products, and they do think it's unfair. Right? So, but again, you need to be that cool-headed person now, right? Because you don't make decisions based on emotions and all that kind of stuff, right? You just have to make the right decision. And I think looking back, I think I did. Basically, what we did is that we reached out to their lawyer, which turns out to be the biggest law firm in the country also. And then we had a couple of settlement meetings in which I kind of I went to study them. I kind of studied the drug. I know kind of like, they're a big company, all that kind of stuff. Basically, what I did is I dragged my feet and then I tried to go through, a really long time in terms of talking to them and negotiating.
Buy yourself time.
Yeah, purposely dragging my feet while I look for potential solutions, right? And it's very tough because, and you've seen our products, right? Our products is much harder to repackage.
Yeah.
If it was easy like this, I could just rip out the label and then repackage it using a new label. I might lose some money on label and like on the manpower, but it's not gonna be a big problem, right? But our products are individually packed, right? So the sachets, which is like the sheet, is already printed.
Right.
We're talking about like 70K.
There's nothing to
sachets.
reuse.
Yeah, nothing to be reused, right? So that's a problem, right? And this is the part where you need. So I dragged my feet, but also the suppliers helped out, right? We eventually figured out that we could manufacture specialized stickers. They cost a lot, by the way, those stickers. Yeah. Specialized stickers that we can put over our sachets, so make it look as smooth as possible, so that nobody would know that's the one was under it, right? And then obviously you still need to own on to it and make sure that all customers are aware of that, right? So they don't want to be surprised, right?
Yeah.
So eventually that dragged on, and then once I know there was a potential solutions, right? You just got to be confident, and I basically told their lawyers like, just give me this date until I sell off all the products. Yeah. But I already know I have a solution.
Yeah.
But I still give them a date where I think they will accept. It's a relatively long date. They will accept, and then they were, I guess, nice. But I think it's because they're a big company, don't really care that much.
Yeah.
So they were like, okay, they agree right up on it. So and yeah, that's essentially what happened. And we end up able to repackage everything 3 months before the final date.
Wow.
Yeah. So we made sure that we were safe. Not a good situation to be in, but right
off the bat too.
Yeah, right off the bat, yeah. But I am happy with like how we handle that, and obviously the suppliers helped out a lot.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and then right off the bat is very tough. But again, in hindsight, it might have been a blessing in disguise.
Right.
Because if that happened much later, and I already have this brand credibility, I already have a lot of brand presence.
It'd be a lot harder to restart.
It would be a lot harder to restart, and the sunken cost, what you would have thought is sunken cost, right? And that will burden you going forward. Yeah. So, as an entrepreneur, I do think you just have to be positive at all times.
Yeah.
You need to have this. Someone told me one day, helpless optimism.
Yeah. Hope for the best, expect the worst.
Yeah. That you need to have that, and I think we did, and we also got very lucky. This is not my doing or our team. This is a lot of people helping out to get this going, and we're very grateful for that to be resolved. But actually, I want to add one more thing. And because of that, what actually we did during that timeline is that we gathered so much feedback from those 2 months that we started selling. And while we're doing repackaging, we actually are able to kind of repackage our external box also and change kind of like a little bit of our SKU. I don't think I told you that. Yeah, and because that was given a chance. The chance is already in your hands. You might as well, take the most out of it. Right. So to give you an idea, our original comes in 7 jellies each. So our idea was that it's perfect for 1 week.
Yeah. 1 day.
What we gather from the customers is that they would naturally align that to the week, and they'll be like, oh, but it's so like, because our pricing was much higher. They're like, oh, this is very expensive for 1 week. Right. So you need to ask the tough questions like, oh, what if we give you like 5, but for a much like a significantly lower price?
Right.
And they're like, oh yeah, I will try that. Those are good feedback. And and this not litigation, like this problem give us a chance to rethink our product design a little bit. So I do think it's a blessing in disguise. Yeah.
I think it's just an incredible stories from in so many different ways, from so many different angles, right? Number one, yes, like you said, blessings in disguise. I think in the startup's life, knock on wood, but this might not even be your last pivot, right? Like we know so many successful startups that started with A and then modified it to B, and which failed, and they have to pivot to C, and they finally made it and went on the public market IPO as the business to D. Right. So with each challenge comes lessons, but also comes with opportunities, right? It depends on how you capitalize it and make the best out of it. Number two, just incredible job, and like congratulations of being able to survive that David versus Goliath fight, right? I think you gained a lot of tenacity, which I think it's something that a lot of founder has told me is probably the most important thing, right? It's just at the end of the day, you survive to fight another day.
Yes.
You gotta make sure you don't break because you are the lifeline for your team, right? If it breaks you, then it's game over. So you have to hold out no matter how desperate the situation seems, and it's all about just bending as much as you can, but never breaking, never folding completely, right?
Yeah, and then we talk about transparency all the time, right? Obviously, in corporate, we talk
Yeah.
about transparency and all that, but there are things that you just can't be transparent about, and this is
Right.
the kind of things, right? And you just have to hold that pressure and stress to yourself because on the outside you still have to be confident, and you need to look like you know what you're doing, even though on the bottom it's a mess.
Yeah.
Right? So I just want to add that because again, like talking about entrepreneurship is as much about your personality, your character, as about your ability,
Right.
right? So I think that's very important.
Take it how you make it.
Yeah, in a way, but also you need to be actually actively, looking for solutions. I think a lot of people just kind of get fake it till I make it. If I like survive another day, I survive another day. No, you survive another day so you can think of solutions for tomorrow.
Well, you survive another day to fight again.
Exactly.
Right?
You gotta
you're not just surviving to survive. You're surviving to fight.
Yeah.
In another day.
Yeah, that mentality is very important.
Yeah. Another thing that I think is really interesting about LivBalance is that you guys have not raised any external fund, right? Every dollar, every penny you spend to expand your business comes from the revenue and the profit that you generate. How do you think that affect your perspective and your planning in terms of expansion? Because it's clearly not the business model that we're more used to here in Silicon Valley, where it's just earn as much cash as you can and grab as much of market share you can.
That's a great question. And I think this is going to be maybe a bit shocking for you to hear. But from my perspective, if you know you don't have a lot of capital, you don't have VCs you can go to, investors that you can go to, you become a lot more careful, and I mean a lot more careful, right? So this company was run based on we just raised capital, and that was it. We never raised again. We never asked external investors. We obviously didn't approach VCs.
Yeah.
And then you become a lot more careful. Every single, in the Philippines we use peso, but every single dollar you spend, you become way more cognizant of it. Right. And I do think, I mean, there's a good and bad. I don't think it's bad that the tech industry has a lot of VC and funding. It's great. We did a lot of amazing things. Uber wouldn't have been here if there's no money, right? Right. Same with a lot more companies, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. But since we're not in that industry, you just need to know your game.
Yeah.
Again, psychology of money. You know your game, and you want to play your game. So our game is what? Is make profit as soon as possible, right?
Yeah.
And we don't need to expand crazily.
Right.
We're on the long game, right? If you look at LivBalance, yes, we are. What's most important for us is really branding, and that takes time. And you need to know that. If you know that and you understand that game, then your actions will align, right? You will build trust, right? And then use that trust to build your branding.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like I can spend money and advertise and get my way through things just by burning cash. Right. I think in terms of expansion, we become more conservative. Right. And that's tough. Because as a founder, you want to grow as fast as you can. You want to grow, right? You want to I want to be in Vietnam next year. I want to be in Thailand in 2 years. Right. It's easy to say that and plan that, but it's hard to actually be grounded and know that, okay, you know what, maybe this is not a smart move.
Yeah. It forces you to prioritize and focus.
Yes. Knowing that you have no lifeboat waiting for you. I think it's humbling, and I do think that in my case at least, it helps me make the right decision.
Yeah.
Right. And be less risky about things. Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
So with all this amazing journey under your belt now, what's next for LivBalance? What are some milestones and goals you hope to achieve this year?
Yeah, definitely. So we already created 2 more products. So our new products will be launching in August. So mid-August, right? So we are gonna come up with 2 new products completely, and then we have another one currently in creation, and probably we will have that online in. I'm planning for November.
Okay,
right?
Q4.
Yeah, exactly, Q4. So we have our goal right now for this year is just to put in a lot of products, and by next year we'll build on. Right now, what we're doing is that we have different product collections, right? So right now we're building new product collections, and next year, the first half of next year is to build those products inside, right? So we might have 2 for each collection right now, but we're gonna have, for example, maybe 5 by first half next year.
Yeah.
Right. And we make sure that we have. I see it as like a very holistic arsenal, right? Like, yes, we're serving the same target market, but they have a lot of needs.
Yeah.
Right. And then we want to make sure that we're able to fulfill all of those.
Right.
Everything they can think of, we already thought about it.
Yeah.
So that's for us. That's for the products. In terms of, I guess, the monetary side of things, right? We're on track to reach $1 million in revenue.
Wow.
Right. So
dollar.
Wow.
Okay.
So yeah, I think we can probably push beyond that. But I gotta be honest, I'm a little bit more conservative in the forecast now because the market is. You're starting to feel that. You are starting to feel that in the consumer market, and I think this is important for everyone to start thinking again, be more conservative and all that kind of stuff.
There for the winter to come.
Yes, exactly. So, and that's very important when you're creating new products because you're burning cash while you're creating new products, right? So you gotta have a little bit more foresight into like, okay, it's not what if the product don't work, then you gotta again plan B, plan C, plan D,
exactly.
Yeah.
So this is the last question that I ask all my friends who comes on this show, right? What has been your most valuable lesson as an entrepreneur so far, especially in the foreign market and in the consumer industry?
Yeah, there's definitely one thing that comes to mind. And we say that business is business, it's not personal. And I really hate that statement. I really hate it.
Okay.
Because I think it's misleading. And I think business is personal, right? This business, whatever you build, it should be like a child, and you should care for it personally, right? So this means you're working on it all the time, right? The people you work with, and sometimes they work for you, but if they work for you and you think about that, then you should care for them also, right? Care to an extent where it's almost beyond professionally, right? And then what I think is the most important is that people, if they hear that statement, then they realize, oh, I don't need to treat my external relationship as such. Right. For example, your suppliers, for example, your partners. Like for us, we have a lot of sales channels that we have partners and all that kind of stuff to work with. You need to care about those personally.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like, okay, you need to be best friends, but you need to care about their interest.
Yeah.
That's the thing. People don't realize that. People think I can make $1 more, you make $1 less. Great. No. Sometimes you want to give the profits to your people, to your suppliers, and we do that. Right? The reason that we can create products that are so unique is that we make sure we share those profits.
Yeah.
Right? Because at the end of the day, you're on the same boat, kind of, right?
Yeah.
You have the same goal, so you need to be able to make sure you do that, and we all go to the same destination.
Yeah.
That's essentially what it is. And I guess I didn't really sum that properly, but Jensen Huang is in news right now, and his story is exactly sums up like what I think. Jensen almost went bankrupt.
Yeah.
Right, and then he took his team, flew to Sony headquarters.
Oh, I didn't know about this part.
Yeah, and then basically Sony tasked them to create like a product. And obviously, I might have gotten some facts wrong, but essentially, he was there to personally apologize and say that, okay, you know what, we are unable to create your product. We are very sorry. If you can,
Yeah. I remember this. I read about it in the book Chip Wars. Yeah.
We are unable, and we're really very sorry. Is there a way we can like work this out? A lot of times if people face challenges and people face failures, they just dip or they just think it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not okay, right?
Yeah.
All the people in this probably care about this thing as much as you do.
Right.
So when you mess up or when you have challenges or when you have all that kind of stuff,
you have to be personally responsible.
You have to be personally responsible. That's the thing that entrepreneurs stand out from everybody else. At the end of the day, everyone gets to leave. You can find a different job.
Yeah.
You can go find a different place to work. But entrepreneur, you don't. This is it. This is it. If you can't take that responsibility, then you shouldn't be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You sum up perfectly. You need to be personally responsible.
Yeah.
For your success and for your failures.
And that's how you should be doing business. Because at the end of that Sony story, that Sony appreciated his gesture so much that they not only did not penalize him, they still ended up paying and basically giving him an investment for them to do the pivot into the newer chips. And that's how it worked out. And now we have NVIDIA becoming the new $3 trillion company.
That's right. And it seems like such a small thing, but it's so important. Like you said, if it didn't happen, there's nothing else.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to treat those relationships personally. You need to treat every single responsibility personally.
I think, what you, if I may summarize part of your message, is that when you're building those personal relationships, right, with the rest of your business partners, what you're looking to is not just build a great business for your employees, for yourself. You're trying to create a great ecosystem, right? So that not only your business thrive, but all the business that are associated with you can also thrive. And so it's a win-win situation where the pie gets bigger.
Yeah.
Not that one particular business is getting a larger slice of the pie, which means everyone else is losing, right? It only grows if the whole ecosystem grows. That's where the biggest boost comes from. So that's really an amazing advice. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And so to close out everything, tell us how we can find you. We can find LivBalance if we're interested. Is there a website, Instagram, etc.?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, right now we are only selling in the Philippines, but we do have our website. You can find us on our website, livbalanceph.com, and then our Instagram and all of our social media handles are the same, LivBalance, LIV, and then balance, PH for Philippines.com.
Amazing. Yeah, I'll put those links to the show notes as well. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me on this show. Coming all the way from the Philippines to come talk to us and share with me your experience. I really appreciate it. I wish you all the best at LivBalance. I hope all those great products arrive and become a hit. I hope I get a chance to try them out at some point for sure.
Yeah.
So thank you again.
Thank you. Yeah. We got to get rid of those chips.
Yeah. Oh
We
my
gotta get rid of
gosh.
those chips.
Dinner's gonna be rough. All right. Thanks, y'all.